I'm going to go ahead and call the December 18th Board of Directors meeting for the Costa Mesa Sanitary District and invite all of you to stand and salute the flag with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Vice President Schaefer.
Okay. Before I start a prayer, I just wanted to say that I feel real bad about Kelly Rowe, which a lot of us do who know him. He took care of District 7, and he is just a fantastic man. Anyway, in his honor, I would like to see us adjourn our meeting tonight for him. That would be just wonderful. Okay, now for the prayer part. First of all, I just want to let you know that thank yous are important. Thank yous do kindness things. And I have some kindness thank yous to God that I want to give. One is our wonderful, fabulous staff that we are so fortunate to have. And we count on them all the time, and they never, never let us down. And so that's a thank you, dear God. And another thank you is our general manager, who is so good about keeping us informed of everything that's going on and with us and with our sanitary district and Orange County. That's very important too, along with our attorney who keeps us out of trouble, I think. So anyway, we bless those people so much because they've brought so much to us. And as a board, we're so fortunate because we all truthfully get along. And not only that, but it's important for the board to be able to be active, and we are active in many ways. So I just want to say a happy holiday to all of us, and bless us, God, for 2024 is coming really fast. And we hope that it brings us even a more successful time in our life. Amen. You still
Okay, roll call from the clerk, please.
Thank you. Director Brett Eccles,
Here.
Vice Secretary Robert Uten,
Here.
Secretary Arthur Perry,
Here.
Vice President Arlene Schaefer,
here?
and President Mike Schaefer.
Here,
Thank
thank you. Any late communications? We did receive some via email, so thank you. Any others?
No, Mr. President.
Any ceremonial matters this evening?
No, sir.
And this is the time for public comments. Time set aside for persons in the audience to speak on matters not on the agenda within our purview. Anyone from the public wishing to speak under public comments? Seeing none, we'll go to the consent calendar, please. Anyone wishing to pull an item?
I'll move for approval. Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous to approve the consent calendar. No public hearings for us this evening, so we'll move to item 1 under the general manager's reports. Scott, you want to start it?
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, if the board doesn't mind, if we could switch item number 2 and hear that first.
I'm sorry, you did mention that to me and I forgot. So we'll do item 2.
Yes, and this is the receive and file the annual comprehensive financial report and the auditor's required communications for the year ended June 30th, 2023. Caitlin Tran will be giving this presentation.
Good evening, Madam Finance Director.
Good evening, Mr. President and members of the board. In front of you is the annual comprehensive financial report for the year ended June 30th, 2023, compiled after completion of the audit. Nigro PC audit firm has issued an unmodified or a clean opinion. Staff received comments and recommendations from Mr. Mosher regarding the ACFR and the PAFR documents. Staff appreciate Mr. Mosher's time reviewing the documents and will evaluate his suggestions. Some of the financial highlights during the fiscal year are as follows. Overall, the district net positions increased by 1.44% from the prior year's net position of 64.8 million to 65.8 million as a result of year's operations. Operating revenue increased by 10.74% from 11.9 million to 13.2 million from the prior years due to increases in wastewater and solid waste assessment revenue as a result of the rate increases. Operating expenses before depreciation expense increased by 24.56% from 9 million to 11.2 million from the prior year due to increases in wastewater disposal expenses as well as general and administrative costs. Today, Mr. K. Mark, partner of Nigro PC audit firm, is here to present the ACFR and answer any questions you may have. Now I'm going to turn over to Mr. K. Mark.
Good evening, everyone. Here I am to present to you the results for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. Would I be able to share the screen?
Sure, let me give you that.
Okay. Upgrade me to presenter.
Yes, gladly. Makes my job easier. Here we go. And okay, go ahead.
All right. And share. All right, everyone. What we have for you today here is what we call the dashboard. It's about a 50,000-foot view of the organization, the flows of the revenues coming in and the expenditures coming in on a full accrual basis. And then we'll get you back to a cash basis here at the end overall to kind of give you an understanding of the financial health of the organization from a top level. When we look at the operating revenues for the year, we see the trash assessments as well as wastewater assessments did come in positive, a little bit higher from the prior year there. Permits and inspection fees stayed about the same. Connection fees were about the same, as well as other services overall. So operating revenues held pretty steady with some increases there due to rate increases. Property tax revenues, we see those still coming out each year, coming out higher with the evaluation. It's Southern California, the value of properties and the exchange of those. So 412 versus 380. Rental revenue, not so much going on this fiscal year. Grant revenue, a reduction there from the grants received in the prior year. Some sale of capital assets overall, and some investment earnings. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And other revenues very steady during the year. So 13.9 million coming in overall in total revenues. A lot of that due to rate increase versus 12.3 from the prior year. When we look overall for expenditures, each category did increase overall from there. Solid waste and disposal, wastewater disposal, probably from the flow, a lot of going on with the rains and everything last year, had a lot to treat. Recycling disposal charges stayed pretty consistent. General administrative did see a nice little boost there overall. A lot of this has to do with the full accrual basis and the actuaries calculation for your CalPERS pension. Now, the CalPERS pension, remember, we're 1 year behind because it takes a year to audit CalPERS. So we're presenting you with June 2022 numbers, and the year before is June 2021 numbers. So June 2021 gave the district for fiscal year 2022 a credit from CalPERS when they had a large gain from their portfolio. 2022, with the rise of interest rates during that period there, they were not able to react as fast. So their portfolio was underwater, and they had a 25% loss in change of fair market value. So they had to spread those losses across there, which in fact, some of that loss did come to the portfolio of the district's participation in the CalPERS program, which resulted in a gain. So that's the biggest gain that we saw there. And remember, it's non-cash, it's full accrual. So that aspect did enter in this year as it was a credit in the prior year. Remember last year's presentation. Materials and services increased there. We can chalk that up to inflation overall. Depreciation expense, very steady overall. So a change in revenues and expenses, 13 million in expenses this year, 10.7 in the prior year. We had a positive 936, 922 from a positive 1.567 in the prior year there. Well, how do we get from a positive 936 to a change in cash? Cash was reduced by 723, 825. When we look at this overall, the main thing here was your capital asset additions. We added more infrastructure, more things to the organization on a capital basis, paid cash for that, 3.4 million, but depreciation expense was only 1.7. So the difference being 1.6 more use of cash. So if we take the change in revenue expenditures, 936, minus that extra use of cash, 749, 134, that's pretty close there on a full accrual basis, about $25,000 off in regards to that. Investment portfolio, we look at your investment portfolio overall as an aspect of your financial statements. We take the average between the 2 years, which is about $20.5 million. And then we look at that to the investment earnings here, 62.77 as an average, and the investment portfolio only returned 0.29. Now, remember, your position since 2008, okay, which 2008 until 2023, interest rates were 1%, treasury management, things like that. But your position was, during that time, was to ladder your portfolio, okay? And you went long with some items, as you can see down here in the $11 million of your $15 million investment portfolio. You went long, okay? And some of those long, which you purchased, were at 1% or 1 point something. It's not, so you have to wait for those investments to mature, and then you're able to come in and now today buy something at 5 or 6%. But still, your portfolio, you were working to what you were doing, and at that point, that was your investment management during the period of time. Ladder your portfolio, buy long to at least get over a 1% return. But some of those 1% returns, they're still out there. So it's going to be a couple years until they become due or mature, and then you can buy the 5% stuff. So that's what we say your portfolio is long. It's a little underwater from a fair market value position. The cash is still there. It's still earning, but it's only earning 1% until those investments mature. You should all know about this. And then this 11 million, you'll be able to buy new 5%, 5-year type of investment return. So it's working, and it's working to what you're doing. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, we got to understand why. So when those things come due, you'll be able to buy something new. So very overall from the organization, a positive about a 936, almost $1 million on a full accrual basis. Very good year financially overall. I'm here to answer any other questions you may have in regards to the ACFR or the financial statements or the audit, how it was prepared right now. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Just a couple of quick comments, and I'm not sure if I'm going to ask you or ask Mark Davis, our treasurer, but if we're at a 0.29 investment earnings to the portfolio, does that include the investment we made in CAS or
Class?
I knew there was a C and an S in there, and that's about all.
Now, remember, your portfolio in Class, you only have about 3 million in there. So when we look at it overall, it's it's only 15% of your overall portfolio. So it's hard to add that. So as something like these investments here, and I know you have the schedule, you've seen it in the finance committee, all the different things and what they're earning. As those come due, you can move those into Class or do something else, or buy a new investment, at 5%. But 75, I think 80% of your portfolio, it's still earning the 1% amount. So you've just got to wait at June 30th. I know this has changed the last 6 months, but at June 30th, 75 to 80% of this $15 million was earning like 1%. So it's going to take a couple years for those to mature, or if they're close and you're not taking too much of a haircut, hey, be a little more aggressive, move it over and start earning the 5% because there may not be that much of a difference there. So that's something to discuss with Treasury Management, with Mark Davis, and how you move forward with those.
Okay. And then the other question I had is probably more to either Mark Esker or to Scott. Can we scroll down to the top section of the dashboard?
Yeah.
I just had a curiosity question on connection fees. With the changes from the state in the RENA numbers and all of the housing issues that are going to be coming up, and I know there are projects that are already in the pipeline pretty much with the city of Costa Mesa. Can we reasonably see those connection fees going way up? Or no?
I think they will be going up. We're very, very low. So I suspect that when we complete we're in the process of hiring a consultant to review everything for us and to make recommendations on new fixture fees, connection fees, if you will. But I'm going to guess they're going to go up pretty substantially.
There are some sizable projects going in the north part of Costa Mesa that we're talking several thousand units.
Mhm.
And now if it's multifamily, do we get one connection fee for everybody? Or does each unit, since their ownership, have a connection fee?
I've got to look at the project plan, the building layouts, and see how we're planning to serve them. But individual units, for example, condos, individual units will pay individual assessments for each unit.
And that had nothing really to do with the audit. It just, that number, I mean, with the slowdown in construction, connection fees probably are going to be low. So, okay. Thanks, everybody. Other questions for Paul or anybody else? All right, seeing none. You need a motion. Well, this is a receive and file. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate the comments.
Thank you all. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, have a warm new year, and we'll talk to you next year. So
Thank you very much. Okay. Caitlin, anything else to add?
No, not for the ACFR.
Okay, then that takes care of item 2. Let's jump back to item 1. And that'll be Caitlin again.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. After the completion of the ACFR, staff condensed the document into a smaller, easily understandable report that the general public can read without any background in finance. The GFOA then recognizes governments for their achievement. The district has won this prestigious award for the last 7 years. Staff will be submitting the ACFR and the PAFR documents for awards by the end of this month. And that's the end of my report. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I'm sure this will be an eight sweep for you. I'm sure you'll get it the 8th time in a row. So questions for Caitlin on the PAFR? This is a report that a lot of districts don't do, right?
That's correct.
Local governments really don't produce a PAFR, which honestly I don't know why, because it's, if you read the ACFR, if you're not into finance, it is difficult. It can be a little intimidating to read. And that was the whole purpose of the PAFR, and it just demonstrates the organization's commitment to open government and transparency.
Right. Thank you. Good work, Caitlin. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right. Then we can move to item 3.
Mr. President, could I
Yes, sir.
add a couple of comments?
Absolutely.
We had a few comments from Mr. Motion. I think they were both directed to this item, but there was a reference to a government code section for transferring the responsibilities to the treasurer. And he did find a typo. The code section is Health and Safety Code 6801, and must have been a 8, must have been a 0, but it's all called out appropriately and correctly in Costa Mesa Sanitary District Code 4.01010, which describes how the authority for administering our funds was transferred to our treasurer in Resolution 85-438. And so that's how that happened. And the code section is Health and Safety Code Section 6801. And in answer, and it's all fixed in our new code. We're working through the process. That's all been taken care of in that also. In, as far as the, who's the treasurer and who's the district counsel, is it the name or the firm? At one time, we did use the firm, the person's name, and that's the way everyone did it. And then the IRS and PERS started saying, you know, if you're an officer, maybe you should have a PERS pension, and maybe you should be paying taxes a different way, and maybe you're subject to workers' comp. And then everybody said, you know what? Okay, I guess it's the firm that's the representing the district. So the world changed about 10 years ago.
Okay, good clarification. Good.
Following up on Mr. Mosher's written comments, just can you expand on the John Wayne Airport subject matter that he brought up?
Yes, we do not service all of John Wayne. It's basically the traffic control area, that part of the airport where the traffic control tower is, that side of the airport
This
is
side.
the area we service, not the terminals.
That help?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, and we'll receive and file again the PAFR, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Now we'll move to item 3, Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. No Lyman Way will be given us.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Before you is the proposed 2024 meeting calendar for the district. There are not many deviations in terms of meeting dates. Everything seems to be on schedule, with the exception of the month of May. So May 27th is Memorial Day. So we are considering moving the meeting to Tuesday, May 28th, unless the board would like to change that to another day, cancel or reschedule the meeting. And then the December board meeting, we typically have it the week before Christmas. And next year, the meeting will be on the 23rd, is the regularly scheduled day. So we are asking the board for direction as to whether or not you want to keep it status quo, have the meeting the week prior to the week of Christmas, or leave it on the 23rd as the 4th Monday of the month.
I think the 16th might be smarter because people are going to go away for vacations and to see the families on Christmas. So we have it on the 18th, which is today. We could go, I mean, that's my opinion. I think we should keep it on the 16th. Just
Stop. Sorry. Any other thoughts? I actually agree with Art, but go ahead.
I'm just gonna throw it out there, just December being December, can we just combine the two? And I'm fine with the 16th, but the study session and the board meeting all at once.
So no study session on the 10th.
Seems like we could get it done in one meeting on whichever date makes the most sense. I mean, it's just seemed I know this year we met last week and I'm all for seeing you all, but sometimes meeting efficiency, but just my own little work.
I think what we can do, or what I would suggest we do, if that's the case, is we're not sure what content we're gonna have. So maybe in October or November, we can consider, can we do that? Is that all right?
That
I don't
works.
have a problem with what you're saying,
No.
just if something explodes, we
Sure.
want to be ready.
I would agree. Flexibility is good.
Okay. The one in May, I don't have a problem with meeting the day after Memorial Day. If anybody else have a problem with that?
What would what would it if Memorial, what do we typically do? That's what I'm just
It'd
trying
be
to.
the day before. It'd be the
The day
27th.
before Memorial,
Oh,
or that's what I'm just
It
trying
would
to.
typically be the day after Memorial Day.
And now we're going to
But same thing, the day after Memorial Day.
Day after. But we've typically always gone day after, am I correct? Okay.
If it's on a Monday.
Memorial Day is always on a
That's
Monday.
true.
That's what I was wondering. Isn't Memorial always on a Monday?
Yeah.
So this is no change?
No change.
But because it's out of the ordinary, I think they'd like approval.
And the board's discretion on whether to move it up a week or,
You know, Mr. Mosher made a comment several years ago about it's always better to move meetings after. I think it is easier for the public to be after than before. And kind of in conjunction with what you said about December, so.
Right.
So everybody okay with May 28th, a Tuesday? Okay,
I have a question. let me
Yeah.
get-
go.
Okay, the two purple dates. Do you know the locations of those liaison meetings yet?
so on the key, on the top of it, it has 4 purple dates. And you'll notice that in the month of January, CMSD will be hosting. In April, it'll be Newport Mesa Unified. July will be Mesa Water District, and October will be the city of Costa Mesa.
Those the purple ones?
Yes, those are the purple ones.
You don't have one for January. It says we're hosting.
So January 19th, it has a line through it. We are closed that day, but we will still be hosting the meeting here.
There will be a meeting.
There will be a meeting held here, yes.
Well, we got squared away. July is the same thing on the 19th. That's still on for the 19th.
Yes. Yes, CMSD's headquarters is closed that day, but the hosting agency should be open that day. Unless we're notified otherwise.
They're on, but I guarantee that some of them will change before the year
Yeah,
is
they
done.
probably will.
They seem to. Okay. Any other, so you have direction for May, you have direction for,
For December's board
December?
meeting, yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Any public comment on this? Then,
Mm. They're requesting approval of the calendar, please.
I'll need a motion to approve the calendar.
I'll move to approve the presented calendar.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimous. Engineers report, anything this evening, Mr. Esker? Sure. Q, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President, board members. Item before you is funding options for the Eldon Force Main Redundancy Project, and could get the slides up. At a previous study session, the district engineer had discussed with you this project and what all would be involved in the project, as well as estimated costs. You can just go to the next slide. And so this first slide here just outlines what was really discussed back in, what was that, April study session? It was a while ago. With the total cost of the project could range from $9 to $13 million, but district engineer believes it's going to come in probably around at the $10.5 million mark. And the district has no ability to be able to pay for a $10.5 million project. And so what we're here doing tonight is to just talk about what options are out there for you. The timing on this project is going to be in the 24-25 range for completion. So we're at the very, very front end of this, and then that does allow you to be able to move and react and plan, really be proactive as to how you want to be able to fund that. So the rest of the presentation is going to talk about what options are out there to you as a special district to be able to fund a project of this magnitude that you've never done something like this before. Next slide. So there's really 3 different ways that the project could be financed. We'll go through each one individually. The first is a lease purchase arrangement, and all of these 3 options that I'm going to talk about, we would end up recommending that if you do decide to pick one of the options, that we work with the CSDA Finance Corporation. They're a separate entity that has been set up to specifically help special districts with being able to finance projects. So if in the city world, a city would typically do this either on their own, or they would enter into create a separate agency, a finance, public finance agency to be able to issue debt. This allows you to be able to do that. You don't have another agency you can go in with, but by using the agency that was established for special districts to do that, it does provide you the opportunity to access those debt markets. So from a lease purchase arrangement, you would be acquiring the project through lease payments, in essence. This is something that is not voter-approved debt. You would end up adopting a resolution, and you would enter into the debt on your own. It's a quick type of arrangement in that once you decide you do it and we're ready and they're ready to go, they can fund the project in about 90 days. Now, and you would typically end up doing that while the construction phase is going on. You would receive the cash, and the cash would be set aside to pay for the construction as it happens. Once you do that, the debt does go on your books. The cash is also on your books. And really, over time, the cash is going to be moved into an asset. The debt's still going to be on your books, and you're going to be paying the debt down over time. Administrative fees on this range from 1% to 3% of the amount financed. And interest rates today, and this is today's environment, and when you get to the point you're going to do this project, interest rates are going to be somewhere different. We don't know what they're going to be, but the Fed's talking about rates could start coming down next year, which would be to your advantage by the time you end up entering into these arrangements. Right now, it's 5 to 6% for a lease purchase agreement. A lease purchase agreement would cover either a 10-year or a 20-year term of your choosing. Obviously, the shorter term you go, the more expensive it's going to be as far as an annual lease payment. The longer term you go is going to be a little bit cheaper, but then the flip side works out. The shorter you go, you're going to pay less in interest. The longer you go, you're going to pay more in interest. So this slide down at the bottom shows that your annual lease payments would be range from about $862,000 to just under 1.5 million. These, when I say annual lease payments, they would actually be made twice a year, but in total, that's what it would be for the year. So total interest through a lease purchase arrangement, financing, this is financing the whole thing at $10.5 million. Financing the whole thing would cost you about $3.1 million to $8.7 million in interest on top of the $10.5 million that in principal that you would be repaying. Next slide.
Real quick, I just want to differentiate your interest, but then we're also going to be paying 1 to 3 finance a fee on top of that as well.
Yeah, the 1 to 3% finance, that's going to be for them to prepare the documents, to prepare the resolutions, to prepare everything that's needed to be able to do that. It's going to be a little bit less on the lease purchase side. They just gave me a range. CSDA Finance Corp gave me a range of what it could be. As you move through the different types of financing arrangements, that fee is going to go up, and I'll explain what those are. But what happens with the fee? So in this case, it would be 100 to 300,000 roughly in total fees. That's going to get added to the amount you're going to finance. You're not going to be cash outlaid. So they're just going to take the total cost, add it to the amount you're financing, and then you'll pay for that over time as well.
So, okay, all right, got it. The fee is going to go over 20 years, let's say.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
But those fees are calculated as a one-time, I mean, we're not paying 1 to 3% fees every year.
That's correct. It's just to enter into the arrangement.
Kind of like points.
Yeah, it's kind of like points. Think of it like that. The issuance costs, if you're in the bond world, they're referred to as issuance costs. Yeah, it's like points.
So let's just say 100 grand in fees. That's just 100 grand period, end of story over the course of the term of the lease. Okay. All right. Cool. Thanks.
Another type of financing arrangement that you could use is a certificates of participation. And these now we're getting more into the true debt type of arrangements. Here you would still be acquiring the project through lease payments. The owner of the project while you're doing this is the CSDA Finance Corp. That's who you're going to be making payments to. But the difference here with certificates of participation is that the CSDA Finance Corp is now going to prepare an official statement, and they're going to sell that out to the public. And so there's going to be investors that are going to be purchasing those certificates of participation. With this type of arrangement as well, there is a same thing, is that no voter approval is required to be able to enter into this. Difference here with the lease purchase that we talked about is the time frame. This one takes about 3 to 6 months to get into place. And the reason that is there's lots of transcripts that have to be created by a bond counsel. There is a financial advisor that comes on board that helps structure the deal so that they can go to market. On the fees standpoint, now as we move into certificates of participation, you're going to see the fee go up a little bit because there's other parties that are going to be involved in being able to help you go to market with this type of situation. The interest rate ranges from 4.5% to 6%. Now with the certificates of participation, you can actually go out longer term as well. You can go out 30 years in doing this type of financing. The annual payments here, because you can go out longer, are going to reduce. They're going to go down to $662,000 up to $1.45 million. And interest over time will be at the low end is going to be $2.7 million. And if you had a 30-year arrangement, you would end up paying actually more than the project costs in interest charges. Okay. Any questions on that type of financing, certificates of participation? Okay. The third type of financing that's available to you, and again, this would also be done through the CSDA Finance Corp. And the reason I'm suggesting that is the mechanism's already set up, it's already there, it's already in place. They focus on special districts. You could do this on your own. You're going to then have to go get your own bond counsel, go get your own financial advisor, let them help you go to market. And it's for something that you've never done before and probably won't do again in a long time. It just seems like it's a natural that you would piggyback off the CSD Finance Corp. General obligation bonds, this is something that would end up going on the tax roll. This would result in an ad valorem tax. So because of that case, that situation, it does require voter approval, and it takes approval of 2/3 of the voters for you to be able to be authorized to issue general obligation bonds. Here, under this type of situation, the bondholders would be looking at the creditworthiness of the district, or if you chose to buy insurance on the bonds to be able to get a better rating. The better rating you get results in a lower interest rate to you. To get a better rating, you could buy insurance and have that, then the creditworthiness would transfer to the insurance company. Bondholders will look at what the creditworthiness of that insurance company is, and as far as how they would end up getting priced when they go to market. This takes about 2 to 4 months after voter approval. So if you end up going this route, there's a lot of legwork that's going to have to happen to go have town hall meetings to educate the public as to what's going to happen. Once all that gets in place, then you still have about that 2 to 4 months after the vote. And you're banking then on the vote coming in your favor. The fees are the same. They range 1 to 3%. Average interest rate on general obligations bonds, this is nationwide over the last 20 years. They've averaged about 4.37%. So on a 30-year bond, you would be looking at payments of $650,000 per year. And total interest on that would be at $8.7 million in this environment. Questions on that? Those are the 3 types of financing options that you have available to you for a project of this size. Next.
It says, after voter approval, so that voter approval would have to be tied to some kind of general election, I assume, or do they do special elections? I mean, I don't remember seeing a special election for a bond.
I would defer to the district clerk on that, but usually the general election is going to be cheaper for you to
Yeah.
go in on.
Yeah.
You could do, I think you could do special, but it's going to be very expensive for you to do that.
A lot of work. Yeah, and it's all on our staff to do that work. I mean, you don't hire outside firms to come in and set up a bond process
Uh,
for you?
Probably do.
You
Can you
Yeah.
do that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
yes, you would bring on a team of consultants to do this, for sure. But CSD,
Cha-ching. I mean,
CSD Finance Corp has that team of consultants. The only thing that they can't do in this particular case is use, we cannot use their financial advisor. It creates a conflict of interest
Okay.
on that side. So we would have to hire a financial advisor. That would be in addition to the 1 to 3% fees that they're going to charge you for their bond counsel. And
generally, public agencies issue bonds to do project. I mean, that's,
Hmm.
if you ask the general public how they pay for things, well, they, go out to bond. I think having the finance corp is an advantage to special districts.
It is for a special district because you don't see, if you think about looking at what you've seen on the ballots over time, it's only cities or large school districts that you're seeing these big bond things. You're not seeing small special districts that are going to market in that fashion or trying to get voter approval in that fashion.
Voters are going to be generally wary of it anyway, so. Go ahead.
I had a few questions on all three
Absolutely.
options. The first one, since we're talking about it, if voter approval, we spend money on, sorry, I'll call it a lobbying firm. That's in essence what it is. We do all this legwork, we do this, voters deny it. We're back then to option 1 and 2, no matter what, correct?
That would be correct.
Then.
Or you try another,
Or you try
try
and
this
float
again,
another
yeah.
bond and, yeah, and then you hire a new lobbyist who
Yeah.
does it better. But, so then the interest rates, obviously, we don't know what they'll be in a year or 2 years from now, but is it fixed through the term?
They would be fixed through the term. That's correct.
So timing is everything on that option. Say next year, the Fed does what maybe they're insinuating, the rates will drop. Next year might be the time to do it versus you run the risk of waiting and the rates go up again. So, but that is fixed, whatever that rate is, it's fixed for 10, 20, 30 years.
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, when we say that, one thing on this and the certificates of participation, if you hit the market and you hit the market at a bad time for the district, meaning rates are high, you do have the ability to refund those certificates of participation or refund those bonds down the road in the event that rates drop, and it would be more advantageous for you to get a lower interest rate.
That was gonna be my next question. In essence, can you refinance your debt? And
What I
you
was
can,
doing.
so, okay. And then the holder of the lease or whatever is CSDA finance, whatever we're calling them, that's the,
Of the lease purchase
The lease
and of the
purchase.
certificate, of just the lease purchase, they would be the holder.
and
correct?
then the marketplace in option 2 in essence, right? Cause
That's
they
correct.
sell it out on the open market. Okay, and then, all right, then if we didn't go CSDA, for instance, you're saying we'd go to XYZ Bank or the market, and again, a lot more legwork involved, right?
That would be correct. Yeah, yeah. First thing we want to do is get a financial advisor on board, and there's firms out there that specialize in government financing, and so we would get a list of those. You would want to interview those and find somebody you feel comfortable doing business with. Next thing that you would do is the financial advisor would bring to you options for bond counsel, and you would want to get them on board right away as well. That again, same type of thing. They would give you some options and who you're going to be comfortable working with. And so you would get those firms at a minimum on board to be able to guide you through this process.
And you had said, I mean, yes, option 2, a little bit more consulting needing and all that, but the fees at least were both 1 to 3%.
In
So
all three cases, this is CSDA Finance Corp's fees. They're 1 to 3%.
okay,
In all three cases. They're going to be a little bit cheaper on the lease purchase and it kind of ramps up as it goes through, but they can't say what their fees are until they actually start putting the deal together and see what it's going to, what all is going to be involved.
and then let's say we went, I don't know, just go 20 on any of the, can we, just saying rainy day hit, and we just crushed it for whatever reason, any prepayment issues or things like that, could we reinvest in that, knock down some of the principal, or how would that look?
Depends on how the deal's structured. In the lease purchase agreement, there would be a high likelihood that you could do that. In the certificates of participation, the payback schedule, because you're going to the market and they're gonna have an interest rate that's tied to that, the certificate holders are gonna wanna have some guarantee that bond's gonna be in place for a while. So there's gonna be a period of time that you won't be able to do that.
Okay.
You won't be able to refund it. But once you get to a point that you hit that mark, the way the deal was structured, then if you had the cash and you wanted to do that or you wanted to refund, you could absolutely do that. That's a risk that the certificate holders or the bond holders in this case are going to take on when they decide they want to invest in your bonds or your certificates.
Then I think final question for me, but being in construction, I know how this works. Nothing is exact in estimates and all this stuff. So yes, we're estimating maybe 10 and a half. Let's just say, especially in option number 3, floating a bond. All right, let's say we go 11, just cover a little bit, but man, the 55 freeway, it just got nasty. And now we're looking at, we got a lease at 11 mil, but the whole project's gonna come in at 16. Now what?
You go and you size this deal as you get closer. You know, like today, we're just talking about, and we're using numbers that have been discussed amongst
Mhm.
everybody to date. Once we get close and we kind of figure out how you all feel comfortable in financing this project. Now we start looking at, well, when's construction going to start and what the timeline of that is, and then we work back into what the timeline is for whatever option you end up choosing to do. That's going to kind of drive then where we're going to be at the marketplace at that point in time. We would bring on the CSDA Finance Corp right away as well. They would help guide us through that also in getting things timed correctly so that once we hit, it's going to be, we're going to have a much better handle on what the construction costs are going to be and what's going to actually be financed at that point in time. But as you said, through change orders, through things like that, I'm going to defer to the district engineer on that, but I'm sure contingencies are going to be built in to what the project cost is going to be for something this size. And,
yeah.
but beyond that, then it boils down to, okay, well, if it goes way over, we've already done this particular financing. We're going to have to look internally. We're going to have to look at an additional financing to cover those costs.
That was gonna be my thing, 'cause yes, obviously, we're gonna build in a 10% contingency or whatever, staff feels is appropriate, but massive change order happens, because when they start digging through the 55, it's like, uh-oh, no contractor could foresee that, and they go, here's a $5 million change order. So we would have to then, assuming we don't have that cash in the district, we would have to maybe borrow an additional 5 through the same process on top of the original 11, call it.
Yes, that would be
Okay.
correct.
All right. All right, thank you.
You explained. Oh, go
Mr.
ahead.
President, could I just add too, that there was some talk about lobbyists and all of that, and just remember that if we do have a vote, it goes to a vote, we can't spend public funds to try and influence the election, so informational material is okay, but
Yeah.
there's always a difference between what staff and the district thinks is informational, what the FPBC thinks is informational versus advocacy. And we've all gotten those letters, so just keep it in mind. Thank you.
Mark, part of your report talked about grant funding and some limitations on grant funding at what, $750,000. Can you explain that a little bit?
We will get into that. That's going to be a great segue to our next as we move out of these options here.
Oh, okay. I must have been reading somebody's mind. Any other questions for Mark at this point? Okay,
Okay, so moving on, so that's if we were going to finance the whole cost of the project. Now, there's some ways that we can lead up to that to be able to help reduce some of those financing costs, and we could buy the project down. I'm going to say call it buying the project down. We would look internally for some available cash that you've got to be able to couple in conjunction with the financing. And these numbers that you see on the screen now are as of November 30th. There's about $95,000 in the facilities revolving fund, and the facilities revolving fund is a restricted fund that you have. The fixture fees, connection fees that come in that get placed there, that can only be used for certain types of things. And so we always want to look, and if we've got projects or we have the ability to be able to use those funds, it makes sense that you always use those funds first before you use general type funds that you can spend on a variety of projects. You do have a fixed asset replacement fund that has 2.6 million in cash in it. This particular fund, just as a reminder, is where you're, in essence, funding depreciation on assets that you've purchased, physical assets, vehicles and computers and things like that. You're funding your depreciation, sending the money over there so that when it comes time to replace those assets, you'll have cash available to be able to replace those assets. And then finally, you've got your asset management fund that has $4.6 million in it. This was created several years ago at a $5 million threshold. It's down to 4.6 right now, but it's a fund set aside for future capital projects to be able to use. You could draw on that. You could draw on any combination of these to be able to buy down the amount you're going to finance and reduce the amount of interest costs that you're going to pay over time. Next slide. So if you, yes,
Go back to that one. The present budget has a $3.7 million potential expenditure for force mains in particular. I guess the question is for Mark. Was any of that money for the Eldon force main? Or was it for all the other force mains that we have?
it's certainly an option. I touch a little bit later on when it comes time to making annual payments on how maybe to be able to fund those annual payments. But it's absolutely an option. You can look at any of your capital projects if you wanted to and reprioritize things and move funds around instead of tapping into some of these other funding sources or in addition to those other funding sources to be able to buy down.
In particular, the budget said 3.66 million for force main CIP projects in particular. And I believe, well, no, let's see. I thought we talked about, maybe I'm way off base, but I thought we talked about when the study was being done for our sewer fees. And maybe that's where that $3.66 million came from. I'm not sure whether that was budgeted or whether it was in the study. I've looked it up just recently, but I can't remember. Anyway, and some of these funds, if we don't buy large fixed assets, that is a fund that's funded every year in a certain amount. So it goes up. It could be bigger than that. Anyway, maybe you'll get to it. Whatever.
Hopefully.
A lot of water needs to go under this bridge.
Next slide. So if just assuming that you couple together $2 million from other sources and said, okay, I'm going to buy that, I'm going to buy down the financing, and you're only going to finance $8.5 million. Down below the second blue bullet there, talks about what the interest savings are going to be on that. So a $2 million buy down under the lease purchase option over the period of time is going to save you between $565 and $1.6 million. On the COPs, it'd be $510 to $2.4 million, and on the general obligation bonds, it'll save you $1.7 million in interest costs over time. The first bullet really identifies what your payments would be. Second bullet, the big bullet, is the interest savings. Now, if you do decide to buy down your cash, then that's also going to take a hit to your investment earnings. Currently, the portfolio is earning 2%. Just to clarify, to tag back onto that other comment that was made during the audit about 0.29% of investment earnings, that's not what your portfolio is earning. Your portfolio in the treasurer's report that you approved for November is earning just a little over 2% in total. What that calculation, which is absolutely correct, is doing is taking on a mark-to-market basis what your interest earnings were for the year and comparing that to your cash, your portfolio. And that does equal to 0.29, but that's because a lot of your interest earnings, as we talk every month, are underwater. And so they write all those down to market, which is you have to do per accounting standards. So then just doing the math, that's how they get 0.29. But if you hold those investments till maturity, you're currently earning 2% on your investments. So using the 2% that we're currently earning, if we set aside the $2 million, it's going to be about $20,000 a year that you're going to have in lost investment earnings. So over the 10 to 30 years, that's going to be $200,000 to $600,000 in lost earnings. It's just another hidden cost out there as you evaluate what you want to do. Next slide. So there are grants out there also. That's another option that you can go take a look at. Somebody on staff will need to research what opportunities are available. Obviously, if you've got a project that's shovel ready, you have a higher likelihood of being able to maybe get some grant funds thrown that way. But sometimes with grant funds comes additional audit requirements, especially if there's federal funds involved. A project of this size would trigger, and you had federal funding that exceeded $750,000, and you spent more than $750,000 in any one year that was federally funded, you're going to have what is referred to as a single audit. The district's never had one of those before, and so there could be some, I'm going to say, risk associated with that, only because some of your policies and procedures that you've put in place that are good from a district's perspective may not line up with what the feds are going to be looking at when they do the audit. So you might get some findings or potentially question costs associated with the audit. Many agencies have single audits that are done. Your audit firm would just be an additional audit that they would do when they do your annual audit in the event that you've got federal funds involved. But nevertheless, getting money from the outside to be able to help fund a portion of the project is probably a good thing, especially if you don't have to pay it back.
And I know Scott has done some work already on getting some federal and state, I think, or was it county? And we're not getting good reception for that.
Problem is, on the federal side, the federal government does not recognize special districts as a local
Right.
government. And so we thought this project would be a great project for the Infrastructure Improvement Jobs Act that was approved by Congress a few years ago. All that money went to cities and counties. And so we, Mark, Esker and myself, we met with CEO, Frank Kim at the county, say, hey, can we tap in a little bit of that money? No, didn't want anything to do with it. Said, no, we're going to keep all the money ourselves. And we contacted Supervisor Foley's office. Anything you can do? Fortunately, there was nothing she can do. We reached out to grant writers. CSDA has some grant writers on staff. And we reached out to them, what money is out there. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of money for wastewater projects, especially on the federal side. Another disadvantage is that we're not a disadvantaged community, right? That's another. We're not going to be eligible for those kind of funds. The really only best option I see for getting outside money is state money through the state budget, through adopted budget. And so we're working closely with Cinema and Cotty Petrie Norris's staff to put money requests in the budget. But as you know, this next budget cycle is the state's having a severe deficit. But we're still going to try. So we're working with her staff and at least try to get some money in there. And we've always said, hey, we're not asking for the whole enchilada. We just, just give us a little piece of the cake. We'll be happy.
Well, even if we got 2 million, and
Right.
What Mark just showed us, reducing some of those costs. If 2 million would go a long way to help us with this. A million would be, but yeah.
As you pointed out, the Fed's not recognizing special districts and all that, but some of that infrastructure money, what about through the city?
But honestly, I think the cities, we did not approach the city, but we're assuming the cities can take the same approach the county took. They're gonna wanna keep all that money for themselves. But it doesn't hurt to ask, we can ask, but I think that's where we would need your assistance on the elected side to talk to your colleagues on the council to change that, because I think on the staffing side, my person, they're gonna say, no, we want that money.
I had been thinking about that in terms of,
Yeah.
is there some kind of project that city needs to do that we could kind of tie into this? But I think I agree. I think they're not gonna give us the money to spend.
There was a federal grant from the EPA. I thought it would be tied nicely into us, that we want this a partnership, because it was money that can tie into improving storm drains and wastewater. And I reached out to the staff and said, here's a great partnership project we can do. But it was only $50 million, and that's $50 million nationwide. So if you look at $50 million, that's those are pennies, right? And the city felt like it really wasn't worth the effort, putting all that effort for that amount, because the chance of getting that money is very slim.
And they have more work to do in Louisiana than.
No,
they do in
it was
California.
just, it was a great, I think it would have been a perfect project. It's just not enough money available.
Could I suggest, and I agree, the city and that's, part of our roles to work with maybe some of the electeds, and that's great, but I just see there's gotta be some piggyback projects, grant writing, funding through the city that they could somehow request. Might be a good idea to put this on a liaison meeting, the project itself, and just keep throwing it out there every quarter, and you never know, because at those liaisons, you've got directors, council members, staff. Just kind of throw it on that agenda and say, hey, folks, this is what we're looking at. Just as a reminder, and you never know. Sometimes you keep asking and you never know.
Agree. I mean, it's a topic we should bring up at the liaison meetings and say, hey,
Yeah.
we need some help here.
Because it's going to be the largest project and financing that this organization's like, hey, city, this is your issue too. So, let's talk. And there's always creative grant writers at the city that they'll find something. Might be pennies on the dollar, but all right, thanks.
Okay. Last slide. This is the biggest thing that you're going to be responsible for once we figure out how we're going to fund everything, is you're going to need to budget for your annual debt service payment. And that's really where it's going to impact you on an ongoing basis. So the debt itself that's going to be issued is going to be a debt of the wastewater fund. So it's going to be the wastewater fund's responsibility to make those debt service payments year over year. You're going to need to include it in your budget, whatever method you end up deciding to fund the remaining portion of the financing. We always want to use the restricted funds first as we do that. So every year as we go to do that, you should always be looking at your facilities revolving fund and zero that thing out every single year, however much is in there to help fund your debt service payment, because it's used for an allowable purpose. The next thing you could do is look to your general fund. Your general fund is for the general use of the district. It's a property tax revenue that comes in, and you get about $350,000 roughly per year on that. Some of that you're earmarking right now, but if you're not earmarking it for other things, that could be a source to help fund your debt service payment, and that's allowable then to be able to transfer over to the wastewater fund to make those payments each year. You could end up each year redirecting some of your CIP contributions or what your CIP budget has been year over year. You could keep the CIP budget at the same level. There's no impact to your ratepayers, and redirect a portion of that to help fund some of your debt service payment. If all of that is not able to do it, you're not able to absorb it, then it could likely result in an increase in what the annual charge is going to be able to fund those going forward. But I think there's enough leeway based upon the numbers that we saw and based upon the what we're able to get, or you're able to be successful in getting any kind of grant funding, depending upon how much you're able to buy down in cash after you look at that grant funding. the whole goal is to just try to get that debt service payment down as low as possible, but not paying a whole lot in interest over time. So it's a lot of information for you. This is something that is, we're not expecting any action other than just to get your general thoughts at this point in time. Mark's going to be back with you a lot over the next year and a half related to this project. And we'll be back in front of you too, as far as what you feel comfortable with so that we can keep this moving forward and you can have funding in place when you're ready to do the project. I'm available for any other questions you may have.
A lot of stuff there. I think as we move forward through this, let's be realistic in everything we look at. And one of the things that I'm sensitive to is we may have to look at a rate increase to our ratepayers to fund this or to do some of this work. So I think we need to kind of project some of those numbers if we can. You know, what's it going to cost? What's it going to cost the public? What's it going to cost on their annual? And I apologize for my ignorance on this one, but if we have to raise rates to pay for this project, and we estimate that it'll take X amount of years to resolve that debt. Once we resolve that debt, can we then lower the rates back down to where they were? Can you do that? Or does that you can? You don't have to go through public hearings to reduce rates.
I recall we lowered trash rates, 10 years ago. And
Yeah, that's a good point,
Lower
Scott.
the sewer rates.
Yeah, okay, all right, so that, but I just think we need to make sure that that option is included in whatever we look at number-wise, personally. Okay, Brett?
What's the next step timeline on these sorts of discussions and then ultimately the project to the other mark too?
The next step from my perspective to help on a funding is going to be the timeline for the project. And so once the timeline for the project is put together, then we could come back with a timeline for your funding or your financing options at that point.
Or maybe Otani's agent and figure out a way to defer for 10 years interest-free all of this and we'll be golden.
Shohei Ohtani, can we put a title on it? Can we name the project after Shohei?
You could certainly help fund the
Yeah.
project, yes.
Somehow figure out how to defer all this interest for 10 years and it'll be great.
Well, Mark, are you going to speak to the question about what is your present guesstimate on when we will know what this project is going to cost?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak on that, Director Rutan. We're about, let me back up and say that we're about 16% along on the design of this project. It completes in July of 2025 is when the final date and we get the final plans and specifications. And so I would think that fall after the fair, we could probably start bidding during the fair, prior to the fair, and then we would have a biddable, get bids after the fair is been completed. But that being said, I'm going to think that we will get cost estimates. It looks like March of 24 is our first estimate, and it is a higher level estimate, but it's going to be a much more accurate estimate than what I have thrown out so far, because we will actually have some, I'll say, preliminary design. We will know a route. We'll know how deep we are under the freeway, things like that. So then we'll know more about the details of the project and see, we should be able to come up with a much better range of numbers that it can fall into with likely to be this particular number. So March, we will get our first, I'll say, real estimate based on the project. It comes back again. We get another estimate. I'm going to say, I think it's August to October timeframe of next calendar year. And then we will get another one after in early 2025. So we're getting 3 to 4 estimates over the life of the design, each step in the design, the number will get more accurate, more accurate, more accurate. And so, you know, we'll give you more, I guess I'll be coming back in March to give you an estimate, at least what the consultant thinks, the estimate based on where we are in March, we'll be able to give you that. So, there's, as you know, there's still some stuff up in the air. As far as the money that Director Rutan mentioned, we do have, 2, 4, 6, 12, 1.2, $1.8 million worth of force main work potentially budgeted during this 5-year rate period. We have stuff potentially programmed into the rates for Mendoza, Sea Bluff, and possibly taking a look at studying Irvine to see if there's some redundancy we may or may not want for that particular project. But that being said, we could certainly use that money. It depends. We've got to do some assessments on the, we should do some assessments on those particular pipelines to understand what the condition is, what the useful life could potentially be, and maybe there's funding there that we can divert. As far as the larger number, we did program, I think, 1.2 million for Eldon force main redundancy, but it will fall in a next 5-year rate cycle. But it is in the spreadsheet that the rate consultant provided us, and so it is worked in the next 5-year rates, not the current 5-year rates. So when we go in about 2 years or so to rework the sewer rates, we'll have to play with the numbers again and look at this, and we can certainly work with the board on future rates. And we will know more information by the time that comes along as far as what the cost of this is going to be.
Well, we have a current 5-year rate increase that was 17%, 17%, 0, 0, and 0.
Yes. Yes.
Can we go out at the end of the second 17% and do another Prop 218, you know, to begin to potentially offset some of this? We know that we're going to need money. So that should be in our thinking.
And that's a good idea, because then you can program in some of these. The interesting thing about rates is when you go out 5 years, you're sort of guessing at a few things, and then as you go out another 5 years, you're kind of trying to anticipate the needs of the agency. So, yeah, we certainly can go out in 3 years, and we'll have a lot more information for that than subsequent 5-year period.
Because this year, from that dashboard assessment, our revenue in the wastewater assessments went up $931,000. That should go up again with the second increment of the present 5-year rate increase. Anyway, I think it'd be easier on the constituents if they begin to pay.
Yeah, you're right. One thing I learned when I was at another larger public agency is, sometimes it's worth increasing rates 2 and 3% every year rather than a big lump, you know, a few years down the line.
Well, a lot of stuff to think about.
Go ahead, Mark.
If I may, just to add on to the timeline of all of that. If we're looking at, you know, a few different estimates on what costs would be over the next period of time, if you look at those options and the time frame it takes for the general obligation bonds, let's just talk about that one for a second, because it may take it off the table. If you look at the general obligation bonds, the next consolidated election you would do would be November of next year.
Mhm.
And so you would need to back up from there to lay all of your groundwork as to educating the public and putting everything together with all the informational items so that you can, they can be well informed when it comes time to have the election in November. So then once the election happens in November and then and it passes, if it passes, then it's 4 to 6 months after that before you can issue your debt. So you're really looking at the early summer of 2025, which may line up with the funding of the project, but that one is probably it's the hardest one to time, especially if you want to consolidate it with a general election.
I won't speak for any of the other four, but as far as I'm concerned personally, I'm not interested in even going any further with any kind of bond. I mean, everything you illustrated to us today pretty much throws that option out the window, unless I get information that shows that it's a better alternative. Not gonna happen.
Perry, you and I knock on doors during November election, talk about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I threw that option out. right
Nope.
away.
Yeah.
We get 2/3 vote. It's gonna be impossible.
In 2024, a presidential
Yeah.
election like this is
Woo.
gonna be, never mind. So
Nope.
I don't see spending any more time even thinking about floating a bond. Yeah, I just,
That certainly helps as when we bring back, and Mark brings back the cost estimates, we may coordinate and dovetail in the same time. And when you get the agenda report, maybe in the finance review section, we'll give you updated information as the project moves along. And we'll just take the GO bonds off the table at that point.
don't waste your time with it. As we get more reports, Mark Esker, like in March, and I'm sure you will, 10.5 million is gonna go up. I've already kind of figured that. So as we get to these benchmark times, you can fill us in on, well, that 10.5 is really 11.5 or whatever, I assume.
Absolutely. Your general manager and I will be back and we will be presenting information as we move the projects along. As you recall, and I think Mark Davis actually mentioned it, I did provide a range earlier. It's like $9.5 to $13 million. I'm not saying it's going to be up there, but we'll see. The March estimate will be a pretty good test of where we're going to be going.
Will that be, Mark, those early estimates sometimes are off by 30%?
Yeah, I have seen that before. The estimator that this consultant's using is generally pretty good. And the way they're going to do the estimate, he'll put a bigger contingency in with this estimate, and then as he firms it up, the contingency drops down. So
Glad we only have projects like this once every 20 years or so, you know.
Should we wait until we hear for information in March, or should we meet earlier? Just wait till March. I mean, I'm not sure.
I mean, it's something, you know, if Mount St. Helens erupts and you need to talk to us, obviously we should do that, but I think
As soon as we get the information.
it'll be March before you know it.
Yeah.
Only 3 months away.
Yeah. Well, thank you. If there's no other questions, thank you for both of you and all of you for this. This is gonna be something else. All right, let's move to our illustrious counselor. Alan, it's all yours.
Thanks, Mr. President. Just wanted to give you a little briefing on accessory dwelling units, ADUs. I think I probably pumped you up and got you pretty animated last time when we talked about Assembly Bill 1033. It's not quite as bad as we thought it was. Looked like everybody was going to get to sell off the second units, and we were going to have a mess to deal with, but it's not quite that bad. There's some restrictions that will make it a little more limited in its effect. So this is mostly about who can sell their units separately, but we're going to touch on some of the fees and the separate connections and a few of those features of the law also. And know that this is just a very beginning, working draft, discussion about this because we have to do further research, like figuring out what Costa Mesa's ordinance says, if they have an ordinance, and further researching the law because one law affects another and they were enacted at the same time, and you have to sort out which takes precedence over the other. So anyway, what is an ADU? The dwelling unit providing complete independent living facilities, including a kitchen and a bath, located on the same lot as an existing or proposed residential unit. Ministerial approval is one, as you know, from your, when you sit in an adjudicatory proceeding, it's different from a discretionary approval. So they're required to be approved ministerially. There's an existing residence on a lot, the city must approve an ADU ministerially within 60 days without discretionary review or a public hearing. Local ordinances must be approved by the Department of HCD, Housing and Community Development. You have to submit your ordinance to them, and they can say, no, it's inconsistent, redo your ordinance, and all those things they're doing with housing in other contexts right now. Local ordinance, you must designate areas where the ADUs are allowed and can be based on water, sewer, and the impact of ADUs on traffic flow and public safety. So if the city's doing one or we have the ability to influence that, we do want to make sure they consider the sewer capacity. Standards are allowed for parking height, setback, architectural review, size, and historical impacts. Of course, it's not going to be discretionary. You can't say, I don't like the color. It's going to be, you have to have it dialed in so that you get an approval if you meet the criteria. You may require that ADUs be used for rentals of 30 days or more, meaning no short-term Airbnb type rentals. And so that's a good feature. So impact fees, capacity fixture fees. Basically, this is an oversimplification, but I think you'll find it useful. Below 750 square feet in size, you can't get those fees. Larger units you can, but not with existing single-family homes. Impact fees, and then if you get, you can get it based proportionally in relation to the main unit or based on the fixture unit value, and that's the unit values like we use in our ordinance where we have toilets are worth a certain value and things like that. That takes care of the proportionality. Right to sell separately. Okay. Previously, the ADU could not be sold separately. Now in AB 1033, there's at least 2 or 3 ways in which you can sell it separately. And one is a separate statute that they enacted in its own bill. It says that if you have a nonprofit corporation own it with a tenancy in common, a deed, but if requested by a local utility, the ADU may be required to have a separate sewer connection. So this is going to be a difficult, first of all, you're going to have a nonprofit corporation involved. And then secondly, you're going to have to go through some kind of a legal proceeding to separately divide the property and have it on the rolls as a separate property, a separate AP number. And that takes care of a lot of our issues we had last time talking about this, about how do we deal with this. Next one, local ordinance. Your city can require adequate sewer, may allow the ADU to be sold separately if it's processed through the Davis Sterling Common Interest Statute. It should be statute, not stature. And that's basically your condo development kind of ordinance. It's complicated law, and you're going to have to go through some hoops to jump that to be able to sell it under a local ordinance. Most importantly, you have to obtain lien holder consent. So if you still have a mortgage, they're going to, the lien holder's not generally going to say, oh, not a problem, go ahead and take half my security and sell it off. No, I'm not going to object to that. So I think that's going to hold back some of these. We'll see how it works. Yeah, if there's a ministerial approval without an ordinance, meaning the city didn't adopt an ordinance, then the ADUs may be required to pay a proportionate connection fee if over 750 square feet. And that's kind of the dividing line right there between when you can get a fee and when you can't, is the 750 square foot cutoff. Separate connections, yes, if the ADU is built by a nonprofit and recorded, and there's a recorded deed with a common interest. No, if the ADU is in, there's a number there, a small unit, that's the 750 square feet. Yes to larger units. Capacity fixture fees, same kind of thing. If it's less than 750 feet, no. And if it's over 750 feet, proportionate to the main dwelling, or you get the fixture unit values where you assign a value to a toilet, a bidet, and all those kinds of things. And sewer fees, everybody pays sewer fees, so we're gonna get our sewer fees. That's just a basic overview of the law. We're gonna try and sort this out a little better, but this was our working draft at staff level where we were gonna get started on working on this issue.
Where did all the nonprofit stuff? How many nonprofits build ADUs?
I haven't heard of any, but they're certainly very involved in affordable housing, so.
The only thing I could think of is somebody from Habitat for Humanity must have gotten involved. That's the only, I could see them building
Yeah.
smaller units, but I don't know of any. Who else would do that? That's
Church.
a church that's good. Hadn't thought about church. That's a good point.
Women's Club.
The women's club, yeah. They could, yeah. Arlene?
On these, the ordinance has been approved already? Or did we get to?
We have to find out what, where Costa Mesa is with their ordinance, and, well, I'm assuming most cities have done an ordinance, but if they haven't, then they have to go with the, non-ordinance provision, so we need to check out what their ordinance says and see if they, put provision in there about make sure you have good sewer capacity and things like that, so we'll have to get with the city and, figure out what they're doing.
Pat, can you do that for us? Get a copy of the city ordinance.
And along with that, I would suggest talking with Newport Beach as well, because those ADUs are going up like gangbusters. I've got one next door to our other place, so I would be curious what Newport's got on the books, and then again, going back to the liaison committee. This is something that should be discussed and shared, like right there, shared at the next liaison committee with everyone,
City to do that for us, probably.
Yeah.
Because they have more knowledge than we do.
Was the
Yeah.
city update.
I'm just saying, put it on there and have that discussion with them and.
I know Newport has a lot of the small condo complexes where it's just 2 units. So that's different than an ADU, but with this new regulation, they're turning it more into that situation where it's a small condo complex. So I still think this is gonna be a nightmare for the city, but
Sounds like Newport's going.
well, Newport's already got it. They already allow for the sale of 1 unit.
They have to follow these regulations.
But they don't call them ADUs, they call them parcel, they're all labeled parcel map, whatever the parcel map number is.
They have been subdivided then.
That's the name of the association.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
the
Mr.
update.
President.
Yeah. Okay, local meetings. Any brief reports on local meetings, Bob? Start with you.
Yeah, the operations committee meeting and the board meeting for Orange County Sand District, they had a meeting. The operation committee was, I think there were 12 items on that. It was a huge meeting. And probably the most interesting thing from the board meeting was they have a solicitation for legal counsel. And it's broken up into 5 or 6 different items that a council can ask to, or not bid, but do an RFP on one of them, or they can do the whole thing. There was a lot of rehab and rehabilitation work in the operations committee, and they also adopted their debt policy like we do annually, and they also updated their policy for the treasurer like we did, I think, last board meeting. And they have hired an investment consultant because they have debt, a huge amount of debt.
When is the regular board meeting? You don't have one this month?
No, it's done. It was on the 14th. It
Okay.
was last Thursday.
All right, anything from SARFA? No meeting? Where are we? Is doc?
Well, I reported to ISDOC on this already, but we have, on CSDA, we have 1,327 members. But by now it's gone up because we're talking a month ago. On the finance end, if anything comes through on the finance, do I have to abstain? I mean, I'm on the finance board.
Of CSDA? Hmm. We'll have to look into that.
Would have to?
No, we'll look into it. I don't know that you have to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm just
I'm
curious.
not familiar
We're
with
getting a
your
lot
role.
passed to us. And, I just thought suddenly I'm on that board.
I wouldn't be surprised if they had some provision that you have to recuse yourself if your agency is before the board.
Because they're giving the best rate ever. So, I don't know. Okay, on the finance core, we lost a member, but we gained another member so quick, so there was no problem on that. The professional development, everybody's seen how busy they were in Monterey on everything. I didn't go to it, but, they are just kind of talking about the Monterey trip and evaluating what they're going to do in the future. We have a lot of webinars and all you have to do is check out your webinars and you get a lot of information from that. And SDRMA, we're working with them and they're working with us. So it's really a good bond right now. And what else? Just finished it. On the webinar, the Brown Act had 207 people that went to it, attended it. And the grant writing, people are interested in grants, as we were talking. So 86 attended that on virtual workshops. And on the emergency workshop, emergency preparedness, 220 participated in that. And so we're having a good year. We're doing very well with CSDA and all the projects that we're taking on and a few new board members. And right now we're at the point where they're going to be letting us know who is going to be on different committees. It looks like they already sent something to me. So I'm on the Professional Development Committee. I'm on the Membership Committee and I'm on Alliance. So I'm already taken care of. And Finance. That's it.
Thank you. Nothing from SDRMA. We don't have a board meeting until the middle of January. Other meetings. Madam Clerk, I think I told you that I'm the alternate on the Emergency Operations Center through ISDOC. Did I tell you that? Okay.
You've told us that every meeting.
I have not.
Last 3 meetings.
No, I haven't, because I just found out. Just a quick report. I get an email from them quite often about, oh, maybe I did mention this one, about the hangar.
Yeah.
So that, well, the latest report is it's still under situational review. That's all I'll tell you. The heck with you. The heck with you people. Any other meetings?
So Waco had a meeting on the history of the Colorado River, which was very interesting.
It was a good meeting.
And We Rock is very busy with earthquake and cybersecurity training through the agency.
Okay, anything else? We'll move to old business, and we have none. We do have an item of new business. Scott, do you want to take that? Or would you rather give that to Director Uten? Vice Secretary Uten, would you like to address
Yeah.
item under new business?
Well, as vice president or vice chair, or whatever, Schaefer is, Kelly Rowe passed away, and I happen to be in that, in his area. So you can look at some of my experience. I would like your approval, to at least sit for that interview. Word on the street is, Jim Fissler will sit for that interview, and there may be some other interest from Newport Beach. There's a little bit of Irvine, Newport Beach, and Costa Mesa is what that district serves. So I think I have a good background. Last year, there were about 16 awards received from Orange County Water District, and I think there were 13 or 14 of them related to the groundwater replenishment system, which I was there from day one on that effort. So that's what the really big deal is now for the Orange County Water District. So I can answer questions if the board members would like.
We'll move for adoption of resolution 2023-988, requesting Orange County Water District consider Bob Uten.
I'll second the motion. Discussion, we need to have some discussion. Any questions? The agenda report says this is a receive and file, but this is actually an action. We need to approve this, right?
Oh,
Maybe I didn't read all, there we go, action, receive and file. So we have a motion to approve the application of Director Uten to the Orange County Water District Board to fill the vacancy left by the death of Kelly Rowe.
there'll be interviews sometime in January.
Motion in a second.
And
Yeah.
I just had a question. When does interviews, but when does it get filled, or what's the schedule?
Early in January, there'll be interviews, and I would expect it to be relatively quick after that. I think probably there'll be 3 board members sit on the interview team. And then like this board did, we had a vacancy, and Director Schaefer was then appointed, and it was by the board. So those are assumptions, but.
And so their board then will fill the appointment with one of the candidates, okay? And then if successful, you would leave here? No.
There are presently 10 board members, 7 represent different
Okay.
districts. Three of them are appointed, and it's the city of Fullerton, Anaheim, and Santa Ana get to make appointments. And presently, 2 of those directors from Fullerton and Anaheim sit on both boards.
Okay. I was gonna vote no if we lost to, so, yeah, no.
No, I would.
Very supportive.
We're not that lucky.
I don't believe there's a conflict.
Okay, then does this need a roll call vote, or can we do general vote? Okay, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
The opposed?
Resolution.
A resolution, thank you. The resolution to recommend Director Uten to the Orange County Water District Board of Directors for interview passes unanimous. Good luck.
Oh, thank you. It'll be fine. I haven't sat for an interview for a long time.
Oh, I'm sure
Yeah, you'll be
I'm
fine.
sure you'll be just fine.
Dust off that
Add a little
resume.
humor, add a little humor in there. I know that's hard for you to do.
You know, humor is always good for the board.
Agree. Agree. Okay, oral communications and director comments. Any comments from the directors? Staff, anything else we missed?
I got
Sorry, go ahead.
just as a follow-up to, Director Schaefer here, thank you all. And thank you for, I think that's 2 meetings in a row. We've seen you in person, so thank you for being here. And just, I don't think we'll be meeting for the new year. So I thank you all for the incredible year that, you've given to the community and us and support. And so Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and, look forward to, my goodness, 2024. But expect nothing less than superb continued work. So thank you all. And thank you to my fellow directors. It's been another good one. And again, keep deferring like Otani. So we'll figure out how. But Merry Christmas, everyone.
Thank you. I would like to say that Orange County Sand District committees will be not meeting in January. And so I concur that we need to look at when meetings are so close, the study session and thing, potentially combining them,
Like it.
especially if I get more busy.
Exactly, another meeting.
Someone needs to take your temperature or something. My mom used to say. It goes without saying how much we appreciate all of you. Thank you for a really terrific year. Thank you for all your support. It's like, I don't want to echo too much of what Brett said, but we really do count on you. And I think Arlene said it earlier this evening. We can count on you, and that's the main thing. So enjoy your holidays. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Merry Kwanzaa, whatever the term is, whatever you celebrate. And we'll see you next year. Okay. By the way, before I forget, who's in charge while you're off playing? And then Mark, okay. Well, if you need anything from us, call Uten. He's got nothing else to do. Anyway, we are adjourned.
I can't even get this right.